You're listening to The Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Practical Wealth Show. I'm excited. I have a good friend of mine who introduced me to a great tequila that he's got to tell me the name of because I forgot. We're both prosperity economic advisors. And I have Mr. Bryan Repple from Repple, am I saying that right? Wealth Management?
It is, yes.
And he's the lead advisor at he's like the second generation firm. It's really cool. So, and I'm going to let him tell his story a little bit, but he's been in the business quite a long time. We hit it off because we're both basketball players, right? So we have a lot in common, and he's just a brilliant financial strategist. So he's going to share some really cool stories of business owners and people he works with. And I think you'll learn a lot. So wherever you are, get your notepad out because this is going to be a special call. Bryan, say hello to my listeners out there.
Hey, Curtis, thanks for having me on here. I would say retired, banged up basketball player.
Exactly. Like I had a game last night, so I am definitely tired and banged up and in my 50 and over league. So yes, but I won. I think I did get double digits even though I had an off night. But anyway.
Still bringing stats to the table.
Right. Yes, not like I used to, but I still, all right. Did I at least hit double figures? But let's talk. Tell them in your own words a little bit about, because you really have an interesting background. So I want to get into for how you got into the business a little bit, because I think that's a cool story. How you met Nelson Nash, because y'all were, you're going to tell him he's got a broker dealer and does a lot of the traditional wealth management stuff or licenses, but they approach it in a completely different way. And so it's just really brilliant. And he trains at a conference I go to in Florida every year. He's one of the speakers, and he's just a leader in his industry. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. So Bryan, tell him what I didn't tell him.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll actually just got invited back to speak again at Money Tracks in January, so look forward to that.
Yeah.
I got into business 20 years ago, 1998. It was funny. I was going through between my sophomore and junior year class where we all fill out our course syllabus and we know the classes we want to take. And being a good student, I started all my classes around 11:30 to 12 o'clock.
Right.
Like all students.
Right.
Well, when I got the change of plans, it showed my classes started around 8:30, 9 o'clock. I rushed over to the administrator, and she basically had said, your father had changed your major. And I had gone from business administration to estate planning, trust administration. So coming out of college, we were being trained to work in the wealth management departments of banks out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to school in Raleigh. And my father saw this specialty major, which really had a background in tax management, estate planning, investment planning, insurance planning, and was pretty broad in its the skill set. So when I graduated, my father asked what I was going to do. I said, I was going to be a bartender in Raleigh. He said there would be a U-Haul at your door Saturday, and you're coming home to work. So I've been with the company ever since. We are actually, in our industry, there's a term for it. We're what's called a broker dealer. We have some specific licenses that we have and some regulatory oversight that we have to abide by. We're also what's called a registered investment advisory firm, an RIA. That's GA Repple, so whether it's a broker dealer and RIA. And we support about 84 financial advisors around the country with these similar type of licenses. So I've been involved for the last 20 years, one, running our personal financial planning practice for our clientele. And then the second part is really teaching and training financial advisors on financial concepts, whether we have a tax practice as well, so there's tax planning, estate planning. But the one that's the most mistaken is really where it comes into insurance planning strategies. And that's kind of where where my journey began. I'll just because you teed it off with Nelson Nash.
Right.
I was teaching Money Tracks back in college in 97. I did in 97, 98. So I was teaching a lot of the concepts off of Money Tracks software, but I was using it more for tax planning. And it was in 2005, 2006, an advisor presented a book to us called Becoming Your Own Banker. And in all honesty, the book, like many books, went on the shelf and collected dust for about a year and a half. And this individual just kept saying, have you read this book? I want your opinion on this. And we read it, and it struck a lot of I struck a nerve of a lot of financial truth that we had been mistaken by. Read the book, read it a few times, and started speaking with some different advisors that were more knowledgeable on this side of the business than we were. We were securities bankers, we were security planners at the time. And this strategy was very contradicting to what we knew at the time. So our knowledge, we had an opinion on something, but did not really have knowledge on it. So our opinion was greater than our understanding.
Right.
On this concept, which is actually kind of a dangerous area. So it's thinking you know something that you don't know, and that's where we were. So with that, I remember the moment I had made the decision to fly up to Birmingham. This is Nelson Nash and the other Become Your Own Bank. We're holding what's called a think tank, and this was in the earlier years in 2006, I believe it was 2005 or 2006. And as I was leaving the office, my father said to me, he said, "Bryan, don't go up there and drink the Kool-Aid." That's what his comment was. And that resonated with me. And what happened out of it, within the first couple hours of a few of the speakers, it resonated with me on what I was doing with my own money and lessons my father had taught me about money that were wrong. They challenged some of the paradigms that I had learned. So when I came out of college, I think many of us were probably in the same situation that we had to buy our first car.
Right.
And we don't have the money saved up. We don't have the cash built up. So my father, being like any other good parent that knew money. Now understand, my father has licenses, many designations behind his name. His line to me in lessons were, "Bryan, before you save up money, you're going to have to go get good credit so you can go down to the bank and then try to get a reasonable interest rates so you can have that first car, so you can finance it, and then you can build up some cash, and then you'll be able to pay cash for that next car. So instead of being a financer or a debtor, you'll become a cash buyer." It was like those were my only two options.
Right.
We weren't introduced to a third option, a third possibility.
The debtor or the saver, either one or the other. Right.
Those were the only two possibilities that existed. And so it was at the think tank that I discovered the third possibility, the wealth creator. That term of how I was making, one of the lines I've used for a long time is, you can go to any city in America, any small city, rural city, and I would say, what is the nicest building there, and who runs that building? It's the bank.
The bank, absolutely.
The bank is the nicest building in every city in America, and they're on every street corner, and they have fountains in the front.
Right.
They have guards, and they have. So how can this be? And it was at the think tank that I discovered the third possibility about money, how to really become the wealth creator. I called my dad up that first day, and I said I was upset. There were some words I used, but I was upset. I said I was being challenged by something. I said, "You had told me these were my options: borrow money from the bank, get good credit, borrow the money, or save up and lose the interest my money was earning for me." So something I discovered along that way was, we have to understand we're either going to pay interest or we're going to lose interest.
Right.
So when I understood that third possibility of the wealth creation strategy, the opportunities and the possibilities for my money grew at that moment. And it was a great meeting, that think tank. And I love finding new possibilities out about money that I didn't know before.
Right.
And that was really discovered at that. That was my first. So still being in the securities business, we've introduced to now our clients and advisors that we train on the possibilities of adding the component of, I'll say it's permanent life insurance. I know that word sometimes people get a little heebie-jeebie when
right.
But it really becomes that word. And I was reading a book this morning, and
hopefully not my audience, because they know that's what we do. That's what we're about.
Right.
You know, that should be the center of your planning, in my opinion. You know,
it really should be.
Yeah.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
You don't put the roof on a house first when you're building it.
Right.
You build the foundation. And one of the things I've learned about when we say that word, just kind of going off on a little tangent here, is I'm reading a book right now called The Language and the Pursuit of Happiness. Language is such an interesting, because with language, we speak. The moment that word is spoken, we draw past experiences or the limited things that we know about something, and we create a future to it. We create a story to it. So people hear permanent life insurance, and there's all sorts of different stories that they come up with, again, not knowing all the facts to learn about it.
So true.
It's an interesting thing that when we hear it, the stories that we create about it, that my father created a story and it taught me the previous, from 1996 to 2006, how we viewed it in our business was bad. And then once we discovered the new possibilities of it, it became such a key part of our business.
Okay.
It became a key part to our business as the foundation. And I'll tie into, when we talk about the business owner part, because it tied in great, some of the stories that we have that has helped people in their journey of wealth creation.
It's funny. Let's talk about for a second before we go to the next part. One of the things you hit, and this is, let me tell you, it is like I have to beat people over the head. I'm doing a workshop tonight, and I will stay there till they get this. You finance everything you buy. That and opportunity costs, like they don't teach that in regular personal finance. And that, why am I paying to borrow my own money? Or why should I pay myself back interest? And why don't you respect your own money? So that is a biggie, and that's like a major part. So what are some of the things? There's a couple things we want to talk about. So I want to talk about business owner experience. Then I want to talk about some of your experience with mortgages, your viewpoint on mortgages, because that's another that's one of our top 5 transfers, and I want people to hear it from another voice other than mine.
So let's start with the case I just had not too long ago with a business owner. It was pretty interesting. So this individual, sometimes I get brought in as a second or third opinion. I don't know why we don't get brought in as the first. But,
right.
They want to explore all the things, and their tax advisor tells them they have to do certain type of plans. And so I came in as the third opinion on this individual. Now, he is a contractor here in Orlando, and business is doing very well right now in Central Florida. So I came in, and his CPA had recommended that he does some government planning. And when I say government planning, those are qualified accounts, which would be a SEP IRA or a simple IRA or 401k that he was being referred in. So the two individuals, I had asked the question and said, "Sir, what's been recommended to you so far?" And he shared with me some of these the 2 government plans that were recommended. I just use the word, let's just call it like they are. They are government plans.
Right.
They are not for you. They are for the government, and you are partnering your dollars with them for the future. So I went through that with him, and I said, and his name happened to be Dean. I said, "Dean, I'm assuming they've shared with you all the risk of investing into these strategies and the access to your money and those things. But let me ask you a question. What happened to your business in 2008? One, that was an emotional thing, because if you know what happened in the real estate market in Central Florida, especially contractors, they got hit extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him, when he went through, he told me a story about how his business suffered. He had to let people go and all the things. There was a story behind it. It was a traumatic story that many people experienced. And I said, "What do you think would have happened to this money that you're putting aside in these plans?" He said, "Well, the market went down too, didn't it?" It's like, "Yeah." I said, "So your business suffered and almost lost it, and your dollars that you could potentially need to run your business are," the S&P was down 37%, some number. Everyone knows it was a significant loss that took place. I said, "So now you have your these dollars down that you may need to use to support your business, or you can't access them because what's it going to cost you to pull your money out?" And so this really kind of presented a new possibility to him. I said, "Dean, what if I became your safe money? Your business," as a business owner, we have to get this. This is critical for all business owners. You are your own stock. What do we want out of every business? If you're going to be a business owner, there are 2 things that you want to have happen. You want to maximize the amount of cash flow your business can kick out to you. Income.
Yep.
You want as much income as that business can produce. And then 2, you want to appreciate your business so you can sell it in the future for a future valuation. So as much income and future appreciation.
Yep.
Now, that sounds like it carries some risk with it. So you are your own equity. You are your own stock as a business owner. So with that, I said, why don't I just become, if you're going to carry the risk on that side, why don't I become your safe money, your guaranteed money, your backup? That way, if the business goes through any type of economic calamity, any type of economic situation comes up, you're going to have access and liquidity to your money. And I provide the buffer to your business to either protect your business or to put you in the position for business acquisition because other people are not prepared.
Right.
The light bulb started going off, and I was like, why hasn't anyone ever spoken that way to me? I said, because we do traditional planning. Most people are doing traditional. We're doing some holistic principle planning, prosperity economic planning.
Right.
And so I asked him the question. I said, just out of curiosity, and I think this is great for your business owners on the call. I said, do you have any debt on the business right now? And he goes, I have 2 truck loans, one at 12% and one at 14%. And I started laughing because I should have asked this question in the beginning, but I said, all right, I know we're good right now. You're moving forward. But just out of curiosity, these other 2 advisors, did they make any statements that they can offer you a guaranteed 12% or 14% return inside of those government plans? No. Why would they do that? I said, well, I'm just curious because you're wanting to put your money at risk over in these government plans that you don't have liquidity, that if you have to access the money, it's going to be a 10% penalty, and you have to pay taxes. You're willing to put your money over there, but yet you have someone that you're paying someone's getting a guaranteed 12% and 14% return on your money. I go, we don't have to do any business right now. We don't have to do any business. I would like to be that person. I want to buy those loans from you.
Right. That's funny.
He started laughing. He said, you don't want my business? I said, if you're willing to pay someone 12% and 14% on that money, I want that. I want to be that guy.
And I'll loan you the money. That's right.
I'll loan you the money. And he said, hold on. And I mean, I was really confused. And I said, well, Dean, why don't we just put you in the position? Let's put your money in the position that you can finance your own trucks yourself through your own kind of, call it air quotes, banking institution, where maybe you can borrow money at 4.75 or 5% and go pay that institution off 12, and that freed up cash flow, now you can begin accumulating. What do you think about that? So, well, how do we do it?
Right.
And so we got his business and his family in a position to where they now are financing their own trucks, getting that cash flow that was going out between the difference that was being collateralized and what the banks were making. Now they're getting those dollars. So they are now on the wealth creation side, not the debtor side of the equation, or the cash payer side.
And so to be clear, guys, what he's talking about using the cash value accumulated in permanent insurance as collateral, and basically, air quotes, his bank is one. Well, so if you use to pay off debt, your bank is buying the debt from that bank, but on future purchases, then he should be, if he was paying 12%, he should be willing to pay his bank 12%.
Right. And the nice part, though, is in this situation, is in all of ours, we have a choice now.
Yes.
See, that's one of the things we have to understand about when I discovered permanent life insurance. It gave not only the possibility of things, but it gave me more choices. And I always make the statement saying the wealthiest people are the ones that have the most choices.
Right.
Now, the person that has the most choices, they can really look and say, what's my best choice? People that don't have choices, when they're limited choices or they don't have choices, you can't make decisions. You're limited.
That's
you
right.
want the idea of choices on the table to look and say, what's the best use for these dollars?
Because then it allows you to borrow out of opportunity and not out of necessity.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. And you're a creditor, not a debtor. Because, people say, oh, I don't want to go in at, $40,000 of debt versus this car. But if you've got $100,000 worth of assets, you're not in debt. You have debt. And because debt is when you have more liabilities than assets. And so you're just choosing how, do you want to drain the tank or not, to use it. And so my clients will know that terminology because I always do everything with the personal economic model. And you don't want to drain the tank and give up compounding on your money. And so if you don't know what that means, then go to, on the link, you'll see the show links, go to my site and it'll walk you through like a 20-minute lesson of the practical wealth process. And we walk through the personal economic model of how money flows through one's personal or business economy. So that was great. I want to talk about the mortgage situation that you just in buying a house, and what you were talking to the bankers. And, most of these people that you're dealing with, that we deal with in financial, they don't know, we give them too much deference because they don't really know what you think they know.
Well, no, I appreciate you. Something that you just said. Well, two things. One, on that loan, I'm finally getting paid back after 2.5 years. So it turned out real great.
Okay.
I put the squeeze on the individual, and the interest rate went up to 12%. And he said,
okay,
not anymore. But I said, I'm great at 12, but he finally is getting paid actually today. So I'm very grateful.
Nice.
Something you just said was the word people don't know. And let me just play on that real quick, because there's things that people do know, certain things, and we know things and we tend to use it. We use it out of necessity. We think things. When you master things, you're used by it.
Yeah.
And you're used by the thought process and the thinking of it. For myself, it's been since 2006. So call that a 12-year journey on reading multiple books, attending multiple think tanks, conferences, thought processes that are so outside my box. So I could really be in a mastery of thinking level about money.
Right. Not
just know it, where I think, I have an idea about this, and that little bit of knowing becomes a landmark in my head, and I tell everybody it. Now, mastery is where you can think so broadly about it, and you've broken the numbers down. So let me give you the idea when I say that.
Okay.
So the other day, it's been a little bit over a year. I moved homes. I was applying for a mortgage. I had a couple opportunities. One was to pay cash for this house, or I wanted to look for the mortgage. So I went down to the local bank. I set my meeting up, was all professional. I was kind of going in fully loaded with my questions.
Okay.
And I started off and I asked them, I said, do you guys offer a lifetime mortgage? I'm 43. I want a lifetime mortgage. Take me out to the day I die.
Okay.
And they started laughing.
You're like, you're crazy, right?
Yeah, you're crazy. We don't do that. And I said, well, listen, I say no. I've been trying to look it up online to see if I could get one, and no one offers one. How about a 50-year mortgage? Can we go out? How long will you take me out for? And they said, no, the longest we'll do is a 30-year. And they asked me, they said, well, why would you want to pay all that interest? I said, that's a fair statement. I said, but do you think that's all there is to this? Is that all there? Is that the only thing that's going on in this scenario? Is just me paying interest? That kind of, because mastery is about knowing other things. Their thing was just, well, you're just going to pay interest.
Right.
That's all they knew. There was not being able to quantify the other things that were going on.
Right.
Let's identify some of those things, because this is where the thought process is, the evolution of your thought process. So I didn't get into all this with them, but I will, because it was my thought process. All right, well, who carries the risk on this home? Who carries the risk? Myself or the bank?
Yeah, the bank.
The bank carries the risk.
Mm-hmm.
I get all the upside appreciation. I make the minimal amount of payments. I get some tax deductions possibly, and I get to keep all my capital liquid and available. So risk standpoint, so I have the use of my money, knowing I could go pay off that mortgage at any time if I chose to, or pay off some of it. I let the bank carry the risk. So I maintain liquidity and control of my capital. Now let's assume that there are individuals out there that don't have that capital available. They don't have the money they didn't have the cash saved up. That's okay too. You want the longest payment as possible with the least amount of payment. Now let's identify that, because we have to understand how inflation works. So in inflation, this is the beautiful part about inflation. There's two parts to inflation. There's the receiver, the person receiving the payment, and then there's the payer,
right?
The person paying the payment. So it depends on what side of the equation you're on. If you're the receiver, let's just go back and let's think about my parents are 70 years old. So if I had to take a look at my grandparents, and I said, if I asked them when they received their first Social Security check 30 years ago,
Wow.
when they received that first check 30 years ago, how did it feel to them? What did it seem like? Probably seemed like a lot of money at the time. That might have been $1,000 they were receiving. But 30 years later, today, how does that same $1,000 as a receiver of money, how does it feel to them? Not like much, because the erosion, the inflation power that's worked against those dollars.
Right. They don't buy nowhere near as much as they did.
Nowhere near as much when you're the receiver. Now let's think about it if you're the payer. If you're the payer on that deal, and I'm paying you $1,000 30 years ago, and I'm making my last payment today in today's environment for $1,000, woo, that feels great for me. $1,000 may have seemed like I was paying a lot 30 years ago, but the equivalent purchasing power of that today, it's going to maybe seem like a couple $100.
Right, exactly.
So it depends on what equation you are. So if you're the payer, I wanted to pay that payment as long as possible to the bank, and as the lowest payment as I could. So all the other cash flow that I can save, I can put that to work for me and save the interest. Now, here's a question I love when people ask this, and I'm teeing your listeners up here, is, well, Bryan, I don't want to pay anyone. I don't like making payments to anyone. I don't want to pay interest. I just don't want to make payments. I don't like making payments.
Right.
All right, I love that one. I just say, okay, I get it. Okay. And then I sit back and I ask the one question. Generally, these two questions I'll ask back. What is the one thing your family, what do you do this week? What did you do this week that's consistent every week? Where did you go this week that you go every week as a family to go get items that you put on your table? And you bring your family together, the grocery store. You go shopping for food every week so you can come back home and put it on the table and provide for your family. So one thing that we do regularly, we have Publix here in Orlando. So the question I ask is, when you went through the store this week, did you ask Publix if you can prepay your Publix bill for the next 30 years so you can lock in today's rates because you don't want to make payments to them anymore? But you realize that when the cost goes up because of inflation, you just equivalent the cost of inflation to an increased interest rate. Consider it increased taxes. However you want to associate that increased cost is just interest. You're always going to be making payments. Did you go down, you wanted to pay your home off. You wanted to prepay it. You wanted to make extra principal payments because you don't like making payments. You don't like paying interest. Did you go down to the local tax collector and say, listen, this house is paid off. I want to prepay my real estate taxes at today's rates for the next 30 years because I know you're going to raise prices, but I want to lock in today's tax rates for the next 30 years. I want to prepay this. No. You have to understand we're always going to be making payments. We're always going to be paying embedded interest. I said the word embedded.
Okay.
Because if inflation rises the cost of goods or inflation rises our real estate taxes, that's just an embedded interest rate. You back it out and embed out and say, well, that was the increased interest or increased inflation cost of it. So we have to look at, there's going to be a cost. There's always a cost to doing business. So now you have to look at saying, what are your opportunities? What's the potential to make your money, make the best decisions for your capital? Because once that dollar is spent, that dollar is consumed and gone forever.
Forever, yeah.
That's where you have an opportunity cost.
Right.
So we have to always be making the best decisions with our dollars because it takes a lot of work to go out and earn it, to produce it. And once we spend, it's gone forever. So we want to put those dollars in places where they're working for us. We're making great decisions with our dollars.
That is such a good point. I mean, it's people don't want to think, but you have to think. You are your best money manager because if you worked hard for it, to me, it's not even good stewardship to think that some fund manager, 1,000 miles away will care more about it than you will. So you can invest with other people, loan to other people, but you've got to ultimately be control and have a thought process so that you understand how money works and how to make good decisions.
And what we're talking about are just principles of money right now. I think you do such a great job, Curtis, of teaching educating your clients and your listeners about just principles of money. I tell people there's nothing wrong with investing if you understand it. There's nothing wrong with buying real estate. There are no bad products. It's just lack of knowledge in a lot of areas.
Yes, absolutely.
And understanding and having a little bit of mastery of understanding. I always ask the question of any investment I do is saying, what's the upside? That's where your ego always runs that one, because we always know the upside.
Right.
What's the downside? And can I live with the downside? Part of what we teach on money principles is really trying to protect that downside. That's what we're doing right here, because when we understand money principles, we can protect our downside. That means the upside's taking care of itself. And we didn't have to go and maybe we don't have to take risk for that.
Right.
We're just being smarter about our money.
And more efficient, not losing. Well, we tell people, look, most people, there's two ways to grow your wealth, is to find better investments that pay a higher rate of return, or you can become more efficient by finding money you're losing unknowingly, unnecessarily. And so we tend to start with our firm. I know you do also with the latter. Let's stop. If you got a bucket, it's got holes in it. Hey, let's plug the holes first. And so if you don't make any more money, you won't give it away. You'll still grow. But if you invest in your number one investment, your business, and you drive your revenue, now we're capturing it and creating momentum, velocity, and efficiency within your personal economy. And that's the best way to grow. Then you can start to deploy it to other places.
Absolutely. You just nailed it. Those are two great lines right there.
Well, I'm glad I recorded it because I don't know what I just said. No, it's What's another concept you're running into that people have a misconception about?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. I'll just jump right into, because I know you were supposed to be at the conference here in Orlando, FinCon.
Oh, yes.
I know we didn't speak about this, but I'll just kind of get into it. So
okay.
I was looking for some.
Let's back up. FinCon, just so we know, because I was supposed to go down and I ended up getting pulled away. So FinCon is a podcaster event for people that podcast in the financial space. But most of them are, well, see what we do, we call it typical, right? We're traditional and they're typical, the Susie or ilk, the David Bach type information, right? So go ahead. I just wanted to set that up.
Great. Good to hear, because many of these individuals are giving financial opinions.
Yes.
And they're not licensed individuals in any side of the field, whether on the security side or insurance side. So they're non-licensed, and they're giving a lot of opinions that they're just opinions. They know a little bit about something, but there's lack of mastery involved. And so I sat down, and I really didn't realize this at first. So I sat down with a few individuals. So I was looking for some services for some stuff I'm trying to do. I shared with them a lot of my concepts, and it was just, you could see the conflict going on with them as I was sharing with them about some money principles. And I got into an argument with one lady because the statement I was making was just dealing with how we pay for our cars, how people buy cars. And her idea was there's no way we borrow money for a car. We would only pay cash for a car. And I said, hold on, let me get this right. You have $30,000 of liquidity, cash, something that you can get your hands on. Hopefully you're earning some type of reasonable interest rate. Maybe not. And if you're not earning a reasonable interest rate, then you have in our world, we call it maybe a tank issue or a wrong allocation of where those dollars should be.
Right.
But assuming you're not earning any interest, you'd rather take the money out of the savings bucket, that tank that you built up, drain it down to zero, and put it into a $30,000 car that the moment you bought that 30 car is worth $15,000 and it sits in your driveway. That's what you're telling me is your strategy. It's a dead honest look when I presented it like that. I said,
right.
And you're teaching people this? And I said, you understand the difference between an asset and liability. An asset is something I say is something that holds its value or appreciates. A liability is something that goes down in value, or you're spending money on it and it has less value in the future. Because when you borrow money from the bank, what are you doing? You have a liability and you're paying it off as less value. So you took good money, a good asset, and you put it into something that's a liability. So now you have it already went down in value. The moment you bought that car, unless you bought a collector's item, but I doubt there's collector items for $30,000 Honda Accords from 1985 are not collector items.
Right.
And, I said, so you're taking good money, a good asset that you could put to work and have it grow for you, and you just chased a bad asset. And they're convinced that's the best way. So you're telling me you wouldn't, if you could put those dollars to work. I said, have you ever ran the numbers assuming you could get an equal interest rate on both sides? What happened? She didn't understand what I meant by that. I said, all right, let's hypothetically say you could put the money to work at 4%. You could put it to work at 4%. And what happened if you went out and borrowed money at 4%? Have you ever noticed, do you know how much interest you'd have on either side? Meaning if you could put your money to work at 4% and you borrowed at 4%, how much interest you would have paid versus earned? Have you ever done the thinking behind that? Of course not.
Right, exactly.
Of course not. And Curtis, you do that with your teaching your principles of the difference between compounding interest and then
amortizing,
amortization or simple interest.
Yep.
So these are money principles. So people are all the time that I have a hard time with people. They're saving money and then they're draining it to go put it into an asset that loses value for them. Loses value. So good. Why would you
got a whole 2,000 people teaching the same stuff. We probably have been fighting, the whole time. Other people, it's like, all right, Bryan, I'm going to take this side, you take that side, just see how many people we can piss off.
Well, let me hit you on this one because I love this. This is one of my favorite principles. So when I came in the securities business and got my license, one of the common laws or principles we teach about is compounding interest. The seventh wonder of the world is the ability to have your dollars compound, whether it's at a lower interest rate or higher interest rate. It's the compounding, the interest growing on top of interest on your money. Such a profound concept because there's two components that work on it. One, you have to have time. The longer you go out and have money working for you. And then two, you have to have your interest rates. Now, in my limited thinking, those are the only two things I thought came into play. There's a third principle.
Wow.
There's a third principle. And the third principle is you can't touch the money. It's called interrupting compounding interest.
Right.
And if you interrupt, if you tap into that, if you use that third principle and you interrupt compounding interest, which is what a lot of these people are teaching, if you interrupt it, you not only lost those dollars, the principal dollars, but you lost all the future earning power of those dollars. The interest, the compounding interest of it is gone forever. That was a mindset. These individuals, I can draw it out, and when we draw it out and illustrate it, that when you build up the money, so I love people that do college planning. Let's use 529s as a situation. Families are really proud of themselves, and I think they should be because they're putting money away. They're thinking about their kids' college. But what do? So we'll just take an individual that has 30 years for retirement. The child's birth right now is 0. And they say they want to start a 529 plan. So they have 18 years to put money away into this strategy. They're diligent, they're saving, they're putting it away. Well, remember, they have 30 years for where their goals are, their time horizon for retirement. That means they have 18 years for college to prepare, and then 12 years for them to start re-engaging themselves. So what do? They save for 18 years. They get this nice bucket of money built up for college. They're excited. They've got this money prepared, and then they drain it, all the money out. They suck it out.
Right.
They suck the money out from whatever it grew to down to 0. And then they say, well, geez, now that we're at year 18, we got to go to year 30. We got 12 years. We'll take those same dollars that we were putting away for junior, and we'll start putting away for ourselves. And now they only have 12 years to put those dollars away from. They lost the opportunity cost from year 18 to 30.
Right.
Those dollars were working for them. They were growing at a beautiful rate. And then they just interrupted compounding interest. And that's one of the principles and the strategy that we teach on with permanent life insurance is the ability to, if you're going to use the dollars, how to have an instrument and a partnership that the dollars can continue earning dividends and interest for you while those dollars are used somewhere else.
Yeah, that is profound. It's such a basic thing. In my mind, because I guess, we have the same journey of mastery, and I'm like, why don't you get this? Right? Got to study it, but it's so simple. And one of the things that we try to teach people is that this is not new information. This is just new to you. People have been doing this for a long time. Insurance is older. It predates the tax code by over 100 years. And so I tell people, look, would you rather have your money stored in a government plan or a joint account with the Treasury Department, or, as Nelson says, in a free contract with free people? And in an entity that predates the taxation by 150 years. Where would you rather have the majority of your wealth stored? You got to warehouse it somewhere. Where would you like to warehouse it? And you've got liquidity, use, and control of your capital. And that's such a major thing. So if you watch our video that we recorded on the prior reserve strategy, and I show how banks make money, and you see me talk about a friend of mine loaned this person $50,000 for a franchise, and how the money works and how he earned 68%. That's Bryan. I got that from him. Okay. And he just had to go from 8 to 12, right? Can you squeeze that one in for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you're sharing it because I think it's a great story. I had a friend here in Orlando that was looking at expanding his company. He came to me and asked me to borrow money. And so we negotiated the terms. The terms that he wanted was for 1 year for 8% interest. And so we agreed upon those terms. So at the closing table, after we had the document signed, I asked him, I said, what do you think my return, my yield is on this strategy, this investment to you? And he said, it's 8%. And I started laughing and said, well, how would you like to know I made a 68% return on this? And he had some choice words for me. He said, how did you do that? And I said, well, you went and borrowed money from me at 8%. Well, I went and found someone that would borrow money from me at 4.75%.
That would loan you money.
They would loan me money at 4.75%.
Uh-huh.
So, well, why did I do that? I said, well, you don't have the money there.
Right.
You don't have those type of partners. I have those type of partners. He said, well, how that happen? So when I showed him it, and these are just simple calculations, I have you can just really use it math like this. You have your present value,
right?
4.75. That's what I'm paying to the insurance company to collateralize my capital. It's there. And they're going to lend me 4.75, 50,000 at 4.75. I took that 50,000. I was going to receive future value 8%. So it's 4.75 present value, future value 8%. It's a 1-year term. And that's how you drive 68%. Now, you could do it a couple other ways. You can take the interest I was going to receive compared to the interest I was going to pay. That's another way to do the calculation to get to a 68%. Now, a lot of people, when they do the math, Curtis, they say, hold on, Bryan, but if you would have paid out of pocket, you would have received, so remember, 50,000 on 8% is $4,000 of interest.
Right.
I received less interest because I had to pay back the lender, the insurance company, because they lent me money. I made this spread. I made the middle part between the loan. But the cool part is when you add up the dividends and the insurance company was still paying me. My return actually goes higher than 68.
Right.
I did actually make all that money, the interest and dividends. So I always tell people, say, think about how we can talk about how a bank works, but I think contractors and real estate developers are they're experts at this.
Mm-hmm.
They go out and build complexes and these nice high rises, and they don't buy that stuff with cash. They go out and borrow everyone else's money, and their return is infinite. Infinite what they make when they develop these properties.
Right.
They didn't use their own capital. And they pay interest back on it, and they make the spread on that. And that's how banks that's why banks are on every street corner. They're lending our money out. They're not using their own money. They're lending our capital out. The stuff that's on reserve there.
That's such a powerful point because, see, we are taught to be the payers of interest, and we've got to learn to be receivers. And, it's like, we always show this example in our software, tic-tac-toe. Well, who taught you to play the game? The financial institutions, but they teach you enough to play the game because playing the game transfers your wealth to them, but they don't teach you enough to win the financial game. And that's what Bryan and I try to teach you, is to really fully understand both sides of the story so that you can, I always tell people, look, I want you to have a philosophy. I want you to be able to separate facts from somebody's sales pitch, and so that you can have discernment, so you can have wisdom, so that you can act with knowledge and really understand how to analyze what people are saying to you, because otherwise you're just falling for whatever who's talks nice, and can get you excited. But that's, you got to do the numbers.
Yeah, Curtis, your listeners are obviously going to be so educated. I've listened to your podcast, and it's amazing what you're teaching out there. So
yeah, so that's awesome. So listen, Bryan, what gives a few closing? Well, you get us a lot of brilliance actually, but if they have any questions, or maybe give them your website, and we would probably do some joint stuff together with some advanced things, and so I might end up with you anyway. How would people? I know I'm trying to convince you to start your own, because you need to be sharing this kind of stuff every week, and so I'll promote it once you get it set up. But if they had questions on some advanced stuff, how would they reach out? Tell them.
I just say send me an email. Let me give you my email address, Curtis.
Okay.
It's Bryan, Bryan, and that's at GA Repple, REPPLE.com. Bryan, Bryan, at GA Repple.com. If my voice sounds very raspy, I teach cycle classes 3 times a week.
Okay.
I was yelling all this morning, so it gets a little beat up after pushing those ladies.
Yes, there you go. That's good stuff. So listen, I thank you, folks. You're going to listen to this show a couple of times. I want you to share it with friends, because he dropped knowledge bombs all over the place on this episode. So Bryan, I thank you so much for sharing of your time and your knowledge with our listeners, and I'll have you back when, I'd love to get you back on, because I know we
always have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we always got stuff to talk about.
It's my pleasure. Glad to help you out and your listeners. So
we might just get on and have a talk about Austrian economics. That was that's our first. That was our first conversation.
That was our dinner in July as well. So we spent all night talking about it.
Yes. That is, you're always learning. You're always collaborating. If I'm stuck, or I've got an ideas, or I have a thing, I pick up the phone and call people. I don't have all the answers, and I am quite brilliant. No, just kidding. Yeah. But anyway, so listen, thank you so much. And folks, I want you all to go out there and, take action, take some notes, send him an email, give me a call if this resonates with you and you'd like a complimentary consultation. The show notes, you can go there and check out our intro lesson on our site, and then you can click the button that says apply to work with us, and let's have a conversation. No obligation. And but keep listening, go back. We're this is probably episode 61 or 62, and there's a lot of stuff in there, so go back and listen to them all. Listen, like, and share. Leave us a comment. And so for Bryan, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Curtis.
Yes. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. Folks, y'all go out there and make it a prosperous day.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.